I'm Peter Oborne I'm quite a long-standing journalist for about 40 years. I now have a column. I'm an associate editor of Middle East Eye. I've been writing a lot about the Palestine and Israel for the last, particularly the last 2 years, but going back many years before that. I haven't got the academic knowledge or learning of the two brilliant speakers we've had already, and I'll try and give a journalist's perspective. And the first point, of course, is then there is no such thing as free speech. It doesn't exist, and nor should it. And I'm making a list on the hate speech. You can't do that, and I think that's absolutely right. You can't incite to violence. There are very powerful libel laws stopping you writing false things about people you dislike, etc. There's a sort of broader social prohibition. I'm a journalist. I'm unable now to write in the mainstream media. The reason for that is quite interesting. It's not because of there is a ban for me. It's not an official ban, but I'm never invited on the BBC, ITV, Sky News, or any of the main big papers, the Times, Telegraph, etc. And that goes back to when I wanted to write a piece in 2019 ahead of the 2019 election because I'd noticed that Boris Johnson was a habitual liar. And I wanted to bring the attention of the British public to this before the election. I went to the paper I then wrote a column for, the Daily Mail, and said I want to write a column about Johnson the liar. They were very reluctant. Eventually I forced them to accept it, and at 6:30 in the evening I got a call from the editor saying, no, we can't go with this. I'm sorry, you'll have to write a different column. I then went to The Spectator, with which I had a relationship. It was told, no, we can't do this because we're too close to Downing Street. I then went to Channel 4, and they put together a treatment, as it's called. They hired a production company, and we had the final meeting. It was signed off by the head of news. And they just got a check with the director of programmes. He's on holiday at the moment. It was August 2019. But I'm sure he'll be okay. And 3 days later, unfortunately, the message from Italy was, no, we didn't want to make a programme about Johnson being a liar. And it's and actually, I then made a fuss. I wrote about all of this. I exposed it. And I've never been invited back. I was cancelled by the BBC. I used to present a TV programme, it was Radio 4 Week in Westminster. They never told me they'd cancelled me. They never had the guts to do that, but I've never received any more invitations. I was probably their senior presenter. I've been doing it for about 15 years. Never mind. This is an informal structure of censorship. You're seeing it absolutely all the time in the Palestine situation. So if you want to know about overflights, British military involvement in Israel, in Gaza, I should say, alongside the Israelis, you won't have read about that in the British newspapers. Declassified, which is a very good website, and had done fantastic work on that, but it was about the overflights, what is the British military training, but that was just not covered for the first year and a half of the war at all. It started to be picked up very, very cautiously by some of the mainstream. I give lots of other examples. Consumers of British media, mainstream, were never told about the Hannibal Directive, which was essential for an understanding. They were never of October the 7th. They were never told about the Dahia Doctrine, that you can basically, the Israeli doctrine, based on the experience in South Lebanon in 2006, that you can just basically extinguish civilian areas as a way of terrorizing your opposition. But that was never, ever explained. And you cannot understand what happened in Gaza without understanding Dahia, which is the official military doctrine. There's lots and lots of other examples of this kind of news suppression. It isn't formal. but that's how it is. And it's not complained about. Then you then you have denotices, privacy laws, and many of these concepts I support. I think it is excellent that perjury in a court is a criminal offence, but it is and of course this operates in reverse. So we just had Peter Mandelson exposed as one of the most contemptible criminals in modern British history, but he was written up by the mainstream media in our country as a sort of brilliant political maestro. By today's Times, the magazine has a sort of soft-focused interview with Peter saying, I may have made a few mistakes. Pictures of him like in a sort of You magazine, sort of making his breakfast and all that sort of thing. And he's obviously a very good chap still in the idea of the mainstream media. So I now want to move on from that is the sort of description of how we are to look a little bit about how we were. I mean, the prescriptions on free speech differ from century to century. Shakespeare was bowdlerized. You couldn't have his stuff about... You could have his anti-Semitism, but not his stuff about sex, We had a Lord Chamberlain's office for a very long time, which basically censored political and particular and inappropriate content. Inappropriate content has simply changed. There's also been a distinction spoken about rather well by Mill in On Liberty between sort of academic discussions. You can write an academic textbook, points out Mill, criticising the rich, but if you stand in front of a mob outside a mill and urge the crowd to burn it down, that's a different matter, and that seems pretty sensible. Thank you. We now move on, which has taken rather a long time to get there, to the issues today. The primary issue today is the attempts by the most dangerous issue of the right to legitimise attacks on minorities. We thought we'd got rid of racism in the 60s, really 70s, something profound happened, but we're now getting it back. The use of disgusting racial terms is now defended on the basis that it's free speech. I mean, the lady, I think her name might be Lucy Connolly, who did that tweet about burning down a place with people, migrants inside. Now, that was a great cause célèbre for the right. It was her right to make that kind of statement was important. In particular at the moment, and maybe we'll discuss this more when we get to a group session, because really the two academics on my left are much more knowledgeable than me, is the fact that the right is demanding and insisting on a special exemption to defame and attack British Muslims. Actually, it's an extraordinary business, this. The concept of Islamophobia is actually denied, that there isn't such a thing, even though there is anybody with open eyes in our society can see that there is. Thank you very much.